Today's discussion is sponsored by Squarespace. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com/Masako to get 10% off your first purchase. Goku's on a master quest that he wants the whole world to see how strong he is. Hey guys, MasakoX here. So about a few weeks back, I took a little bit of a journey concerning Akira Toriyama and his relationship with his editors back in the day. In it, we realized that despite the number of times that Toriyama would down on his editors, time and time again he would say that they're stifling his creative freedom, he actually really needed them. And deep down, he truly respected them. And quite frankly, without them, we would have gotten more stuff like the Boo Saga. Yeah, it was fun, sure, but you gotta admit, it was a little bit messy in comparison to arcs past. With a master at the helm to steer Toriyama in the right direction, we truly got some very fantastic and compelling stories. You know what that relationship reminds me of? Goku and his masters. Without a master to guide Goku, he gets a little bit aimless and just doesn't really know where to go other than just get stronger. But when he did find a master, he was able to triumph over adversity, break new limits, unleash brand new powers, and just make himself much more merchandisable. Let's take a look at all of the beings that managed to call themselves Goku's master and see which one was the most compelling, or at least the one that managed to get through Goku's dense head the most. Starting of course with his adoptive grandfather, the being that found him on Earth as a baby and took him under his wing. Without him, Goku would have just been left to fend for himself or maybe die. Anyway, we're talking about Grandpa Gohan. He is largely responsible for the being that Goku is today, not only teaching him about the basics of martial arts, but has also managed to forge his mentality and morality, which has actually stayed true throughout the entirety of Goku's life. Goku may be a country bumpkin, but he does know the difference between right and wrong, not only thanks to the bump on the noggin, but through other mediums, nurturing. He does know how to be polite to guests that are coming to his own home, so that's got to count for something. Shame it didn't spread to the likes of his table manners. One of the key moments of Goku's martial art developments came ironically after Grandpa Gohan's death. You see, when Goku was doing a spot of training at Fortune Teller Barber's place, he came across his dead grandfather, who managed to teach him something else from beyond the grave. He revealed to Goku a weakness concerning his tail. Now to the young child, this may have just been an observation on his own means, like this is just something only intrinsic to Goku. Toriyama, unlike him most of the time, actually showed some signs of continuity. We saw the same phenomena with the tail concerning Raditz instead of Goku. Goku remembered the tidbit that his grandpa taught him, and it stayed true. He was obviously thinking, well, if this guy's the same as me, maybe that thing works the same as it does for me. And it also implies that back in the Fortune Teller Barber saga, Saiyans were starting to come into Toriyama's mind. Jokes aside, since we've got a lot of characters to talk about here, let's start to wrap up Grandpa Gohan. He is quite possibly the most influential person in Goku's life, and has taught him the basics of martial arts and getting him started. Even though the details may be a little bit basic, other than the sides of basic training and just composition and behavior, it's still important, and without it, Goku would have had no sense of direction at all. But the next one is quite clearly the big one, and that is of course, Master Roshi, who's been getting a lot of attention lately. For Goku, Master Roshi is surely the master in his life, because Roshi's been around for all the big feats in Goku's life past his childhood years. While controversial in today's standards, Master Roshi truly made an impact in Goku's martial arts training. Not only is he responsible for teaching Goku his now signature move, the Kamehameha, but he's also importantly part of Goku's development when it comes to martial arts and discipline. In particular, when it comes to advanced martial arts and a sense of coordination and understanding and concentration. You think that Roshi is a bit of a dunderhead who has no sense of morality at all, but when you go back to the original Dragon Ball, you realize that Roshi, even though he may be a little bit lewd, does have a good understanding of what it takes to be a martial artist. He was the one to make sure that all of his students never felt overconfident, kept their feet on the ground, and truly understood that if you want to be successful in martial arts, you have to take this seriously. And also, most importantly, especially for Goku, always strive for the next best challenge, and as we know clearly in Dragon Ball Super, that is exactly what Goku does. He does not let that master down. But we now can see Master Roshi not only as a martial arts figure in Goku's life, but also as an important father figure, after the apparent death of Master Roshi. We thought that he was all gonna bite the dust and sacrifice himself for the name of the game, and Goku was absolutely devastated, and we only saw that come to light when we found out that Roshi was indeed alive and Goku just let loose. In that moment, Goku not only sees Roshi as an important father figure, but also a connection to his past, his childhood. That is the link to his younger self when things were much simpler and you didn't have to worry about divine energy taking over and destroying the Omniverse. It was that connection that brought out a side of Goku that we've rarely or never seen before. And while Roshi for the longest time was a deeply flawed character, even though he's starting to clear up his act now in Dragon Ball Super, and I am so happy that it's sticking, he still may be the most important master that Goku's ever had, quite possibly one of the best. After all, the Kamehameha, something that Roshi taught Goku himself, is still being used to this day as part of Goku's power technique arsenal. We could wrap this video up right now, but there are plenty of other beings that gave Goku lots and lots of inspiration. But before we get into that, a word from today's sponsor. For years now, I've been struggling to find a place to show off my personal projects like Dragon Ball R&R with a bit more of a personal touch. I've tried other places that offer web design services, but they're either really limited or overly complicated. Luckily, Squarespace provides the perfect balance of features as well as an easy to use layout. The MasakoX website is slowly coming together, but whatever changes I've wanted to make it perfect, Squarespace makes it easy to get done within seconds. No coding needed. Do you want to try it yourself? Well, go to squarespace.com/Masako to get 10% off your first purchase with them, so you can get started immediately with dozens of templates to help inspire you. That's squarespace.com/MASAKO. Good luck and happy building. We now move on briefly to Goku's next master, Korin. While he may not have taught Goku any kind of flashy tricks, he did teach Goku an important lesson, and that concerns persistence. The art of endurance and determination which built upon Roshi's teachings of discipline and evolved Goku even further. It led to Goku's tenacious appetite to get stronger and find greater opponents. In fact, Korin's training might be the reason why Goku wasn't overly happy when he got the Super Saiyan God transformation, because to him, he felt like he didn't truly earn it, you know? Pretty much all of his previous power boosts were built on pain, perseverance, and persistence. The Super Saiyan God power was just given to him by his buddies. To Goku, it just didn't feel right, and he's rarely used it in Dragon Ball. I mean, aside from the Battle of Gods arc when he first got it, and then we see it occasionally in Tournament of Power as being a more convenient version of Super Saiyan Blue when he's trying to conserve energy. If he can help it, he probably wouldn't use it. The whole Sacred Water plot point that Korin provided to Goku truly made the young Saiyan averse towards magical artifacts and any kind of power boosts that weren't earned through training. The only reason that Goku took on the Sacred Water challenge in the first place was that he needed to get a quick power boost to make sure that King Piccolo didn't destroy the planet, because he was going about it at a very quick pace. It was clearly a last resort, and since then, Goku's tried to steer clear of any kind of magical gains that were convenient. I mean, of course, except senzu beans, of course, because that goes without saying. And technically, they're organic, so they're natural. And besides, without senzu beans, Earth would be a very different place, as I managed to explore in one of my What Ifs, so you can check out the video of that in the What If playlist. The next journey in Goku's quest for a master comes with Mr. Popo, who is another brief entry on this list. When Goku met the Jolly Genie for the first time, he had recently defeated King Piccolo. And despite the fact that Mr. Popo is quite a benevolent figure, he managed to deal with Goku's newfound power surprisingly well. A little too well in the eyes of some. And it actually, arguably, could be the first sign of power creep within Dragon Ball, because you think, where was he earlier? He could have taken on King Piccolo himself and left Goku just to train on his own, or at least helped him, but no. So, power level starting to creep in. He was, and I have to make this very clear for you all, the guy that taught Goku how to sense ki. Something that has become a staple within Dragon Ball ever since Z started especially, as well as apparently upgrading the Kamehameha into a Super Kamehameha. At the same time, Goku was training with another master, Kami, and trained for quite a long time, but mostly off screen, and while the details of that remain relatively unknown, it's like the fight that Gandalf had with the Balrog in Lord of the Rings. It was mostly off screen and we just had to imply that it was very arduous and took a long time. It's too mystical for us to know, or Toriyama was just overly lazy and he couldn't be bothered to come up with the details. But what we do know is that Kami was the one to remove Goku's tail, as he saw it as an obvious sign of weakness, as we managed to imply earlier with Grandpa Gohan showing the weakness itself. as well as giving Goku his trusty weighted clothing. It's funny how little we know of that time period because it took up 3 years of Goku's life. It was the moment when Goku became an adult and we were not there to see it. That was the period when Goku started to become the Z version of himself. Now speaking of the Z version of Goku, we then have to move on to the next master to come into Goku's life, and that is of course King Kai. And King Kai's planet was the first place that we saw where we truly began to understand what Z was going to be about. Insane powers and planet-breaking beings. This relationship is pretty unique because not only did King Kai teach Goku the Kaioken, his second favourite technique after the Kamehameha, and the Spirit Bomb, his third favourite technique, he became Goku's direct link to the divine world. Kind of like King Kai being on Goku's speed dial. King Kai then became also the Captain of Exposition, and you could argue that King Kai is the narrator of the entire world of Dragon Ball, as well as being Goku's friend for many, many years, even though the latter blew up the former's planet thanks to Cell. Oops. Arguably, this is the moment when Goku stopped being a mere mortal and actually began his journey towards ascension that we saw in Dragon Ball Super. Now that Goku had these powers, he needed to find something else, something that would help him travel far distances in a short space of time, so he can get so much training in and not have to worry about journeys like he had to take with Frieza the 6 days. Now we managed to get that, and rather conveniently so, with the help of the Yardratians. They may have been just a footnote in the manga and just a series of flashbacks in the anime, but you can't deny that the Yardratians provided Goku one of the most important things in his technique arsenal, the instant transmission. A very useful Deus Ex Machina which has gotten Goku out of trouble many times and is the ultimate convenience. Now you would think that after you get all these powers combined that the best trainer and teacher for Goku is of course himself, and that the only thing that Goku would need to make his training effective is to find a very good sparring partner. Well, we're kind of wrong about this. Goku isn't that great teaching himself. He can make himself stronger of course, because we see that with Ten Shinhan, you can get stronger on your own and training with others, but he's not as dynamic as the likes of Vegeta and Piccolo, coming up with new techniques all of the time, and just changing his fighting style to adapt to the newfound strength. No, Goku was just a one-track mind and just kept doing the same thing, but just only with greater power. By the end of Z and the beginning of Super, it became quite clear that Goku needed to find a new master fast, and luckily for him, he did find one with the likes of Whis. Whis, and by proxy Beerus, became the ultimate mentor for Goku, as well as Vegeta, opening their way towards a whole new level of divine martial arts. The absolute peak of mortal capability. While Whis has not really taught Goku any new interesting techniques, and I'm not counting Ultra Instinct here because Goku learned that on his own, he made them change their view of fighting as a whole. Whis was very aware that he wasn't teaching beginners, even though he made them feel like they were beginners, but he was just trying to teach them a whole new aspect of what they were doing. And therefore, they were able to tap into new powers that weren't obvious to them back in the day, like we saw with Ultra Instinct and Super Vegeta Blue. He also succeeded King Kai in becoming the exposition machine, and of course becoming the ultimate Deus Ex Machina, because if you've got a problem, Whis can just easily do it. Now in my mind, it's either Master Roshi or Whis that are Goku's best masters in teaching them the groundwork stuff, but when it comes down to the absolute best and most important master for Goku, quite frankly, they all are really. And yet we are constantly reminded of all the years of training that Goku's had, even though they're not immediately implied. So the next time you watch Goku's fight with Jiren, you have to remember that there are a lot of people behind Goku's power in order for him to actually come up to that fight, and one of them was a talking cat. So what do you guys think? Who was Goku's best master? And quite frankly, did he even need one in the beginning? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!